Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Michael?
Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. I think he'll come back.
Exploring uncharted territory.
And totally charted.
Just talk.
Sure.
The only reason she babysits is to have
Halloween.
Okay, Linda.
Come on out. Halloween. The night he came home.
Slasher films, without a doubt, are the most popular of all horror films. The subgenre took root with the release of Bob Cook's 1974 film Black Christmas. However, it was in 1978 where novice director John Carpenter made the genre popular, and the flames of its popularity still flicker like a freshly lit candle in a jack-o'-lantern on Halloween night. Halloween introduces us to Michael Myers, a man that 10 years prior had brutally murdered his sister and boyfriend on Halloween night. On this night, Dr. Samuel Loomis, the late Donald Pleasance, is set to retrieve Myers for a hearing that will hopefully keep him in an insane asylum for the rest of his life. When Myers escapes and goes home to Haddonfield, Illinois, where Laurie Strode, Scream Queen Jamie Lee Curtis, in her first starring role, and her friends are subject to brutality and terror committed by Myers. This film is really what kick-started the slasher film subgenre. It is also the film that made John Carpenter a horror master. Our first 2 clips are going to be from Carpenter himself. First, in a brief clip, he explains his view on horror films, and then he talks about the premise of Halloween, including the idea behind Michael Myers and what they were trying to capture, and his now infamous mask.
If you go to a horror film or a monster movie or something, you know something's coming. I mean, that's why you pay your ticket. The whole secret is, when does it happen? And how long can you keep the audience waiting for that event to happen? And how long can you keep this mysterious character, Michael Myers, alive and stalking people without ever having to do anything? And the longer that can go on, the more anxious the audience becomes. All suspense is you create anxiety in the viewer, and they're upset. They want the characters to pay attention to what's going on, because they're ahead. They're always ahead of the characters.
Now, the original idea for Halloween.
My job in making Halloween was to do an exploitation horror film. And the basic premise was given to me by my distributor, Erwin Yablans. He said, let's do a movie about these babysitters who get stalked by a killer. He figured that everybody could identify with babysitting. So many teenagers had done it. And then a little bit later, he came up with the idea of calling it Halloween. Let's set it on Halloween night and call it Halloween. Never been used as a title before. Never been used at all. It was an underutilized holiday, so great. And I was a young director then, and I was hungry for experience, hungry for features. I had done some work before then. I said, sure, why not? Well, when we were making the film, I thought, gee, it's Halloween at night and people get dressed up in masks. What better way to have a killer not be identified than be wearing a mask? And we didn't have any money to make a mask, so my production designer, Tommy Lee Wallace, went up to a magic shop right here on Hollywood Boulevard and bought a William Shatner Star Trek mask, Captain Kirk mask. Spray painted it, cut the eye holes a little bit different, fixed the hair, and there we go. As I remember it now, maybe it was more, but I had about 3 or 4 days to do the score to Halloween, basically record the whole thing. I wanted something deadly simple and something that would just eat at you a little bit. And my father bought me a pair of bongos when I was really young for Christmas. He taught me how to play 5/4 time on them. So all I did was to get on piano and do 5/4 with an octave. And that was where it came from. One scene that I'm particularly fond of, where after Jamie makes her discovery in the house, she backs into a corner. It's a dark corner back there. And she's kind of terrified and hiding for a moment. And then gradually you become aware that he is standing right behind her. And he just slowly turned the light up and it just exposed that mask on film. And that was creepy. That may be my favorite scene. It was an odd experience on Halloween. It was released across the country in October and November of '78 to not very good reviews. Somehow it caught on and began to develop a word of mouth. And I was off directing a TV movie called Elvis, so by the time I'd finished that, I was invited to New York to speak at some deal, and they were screening Halloween, and I was standing outside waiting to go in, and it was just the screams over and over and over again. It was music to my ears.
What makes this film so powerful and so scary, despite a horrible stereotype that slasher films can't be scary, is that us, the audience or viewer, does not fully see Michael until a quarter of the way through the film. He stealthily moves in between the bushes and clothing, and he's never fully visualized. His kills are done with stealth brutality and no remorse. This mystery is set up by Loomis. When he is described by the doctor, we, the viewer, become more terrified of him, despite not fully seeing him. To me, that is a credit to the performance of Donald Pleasence. Our next clip is an example of this. In this scene, Loomis is describing to Haddonfield's sheriff what he saw in Michael and why he is fighting to stop him for good.
Does anybody live here? No, not since 1963 when it happened. Every kid in Haddonfield thinks this place is haunted. They may be right. Dog. It's still warm.
He got hungry.
Got behind. Could have been a skunk.
Could have.
Man wouldn't do that.
This isn't a man. Happening here. She was sitting right here. He could have seen her through this window. Standing on the lawn, he could have seen inside. You must think me a very sinister doctor. Oh, I do have a permit.
Seems to me you're just plain scared.
Yes, yeah, I am. I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What do we do?
He's been here once tonight. I think he'll come back. I'm gonna wait for him.
I still think I should notify the radio and television.
No. If you do that, they'll see him in every street corner. They'll look for him in every house. Just tell your men to keep their mouths shut and their eyes open.
I'll check back in an hour.
A review of this film wouldn't be complete or do this film justice without speaking on Jamie Lee Curtis's performance of Laurie Strode. This performance is what the quote-unquote final girl of horror films would be known for. The sweet girl next door that always does right and is virginal. Our last scene is an indication of this. Laurie and her friends are walking home after school. 2 of them are talking about sex and people getting into trouble. Laurie is more preoccupied with her chemistry book. This shows the traits that make the now classic horror film Final Girl, and it is all thanks to Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in this film.
We have 3 new cheers to learn in the morning. The game is in the afternoon. I have to get my hair done at 5, and the dance is at 8. I'll be totally wiped out.
I don't think you have enough to do tomorrow.
Totally.
As usual, I have nothing to do.
It's your own fault, and I don't feel a bit sorry for you. Hey, Linda, Laurie, why didn't you wait for me?
We did. 15 minutes. You totally never showed.
That's not true. Here I am.
What's wrong, Annie? You're not smiling.
I'm never smiling again. Paul dragged me into the boys' locker room.
Exploring uncharted territory?
Totally charted.
Just talk.
Sure. Old Jerko got caught throwing eggs and soaping windows. His parents grounded him. He can't come over tonight.
I thought you were babysitting tonight.
The only reason she babysits is to have...
I have a place for that. I forgot my chemistry book.
So who cares? I always forget my chemistry book and my math book and my English book and my French book. And, well, who needs books anyway? I don't need books. I always forget all of my books. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you have your books or not. Hey, isn't that Devon Graham?
I don't think so.
I think he's cute.
Hey, jerk! Speed kills!
God, can't you take a joke?
I could use many words to describe what this film means to not just horror films, but films in general. This film was the precursor to some of the most notorious film villains of all time. Leatherface, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Chucky, Pinhead, Candyman, and many, many more. If not for the success of this film, it's safe to say we would not have the others. Its worldwide gross was over $70 million. As we heard Carpenter say earlier, this was done strictly on word of mouth. This made it one of the most successful independent films of all time. It made Jamie Lee Curtis a star and John Carpenter into one of the greatest independent film directors of all time. And finally, it made Michael Myers the face or the shape of a holiday. The film spawned 10 direct sequels, and shock rocker Rob Zombie, out of his admiration of the films, did a remake and a sequel to his remake as well. Despite the hit or miss and disjointed nature of the film series, this does not take away from the greatness of this film. It shocks, scares, and makes you cringe at its brutality. It is the ultimate slasher film and is a must-see, because everyone deserves one good scare. I hope you join me this Friday when we look at a high school senior living life to its fullest on one glorious day off. We will take a look at the John Hughes film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. For WMNH and Matt Connarton Unleashed, this has been a classic film review with Erich Pilcher.
Incalculated silence, captivated by the violence I replay from 15 years ago today. Oh, an evil evolution will bring a feeble institution to its knees. Oh, doctor, can't you see that when the hands of fate fall on the midnight hour, behind this mask of hate, that's on the devil's power. These are the devil's eyes. A former portrait of perfection, painted without pride. Now Haddonfield's my battlefield. Your kids won't make it home tonight. With the madness void of reason, I kill with every strike. I'll haunt you day after day, knife after knife, taking life after life. When the hands of fate fall on the midnight hour, behind this mask of hate, that's on the devil's power. If there's life in the shadows, let the knife leave its mark where the sun upstream of the crop, a silent cut above the rest. Where blood's thicker than water, I've carved up quite a scene with your worst fears cast on this white veneer. I've changed the face of Halloween. You can't kill the boogeyman. When the hands of fate fall on the midnight hour, behind this mask of pain, I don't the devil's power. If there's life in the shadows, let the knife leave its mark. Where the certainty of safety feels like stabbing in the dark.
All units respond. Multiple fatalities reported on Orange Grove Ave. The suspect has been identified as one Michael